How has actor training changed?
That's a good question. I think it always will keep changing, but I think why it keeps changing is maybe two reasons. I'm sure there's more. One is because the industry is changing. So there's demands from the industry, which will demand something of the actor. And I think the other reason might be because universities now are certainly even central, are kind of merged with universities which are doing MA courses, are doing PhDs, and there's a lot of research, scientific research going into these areas in the sense of movement, voice, acting itself, and the psychology of it all. And I think science will affect it to a point, but what's useful there is what's useful for the actor from that research into the workshop, the classroom, the rehearsal, and the performance.
So you would say that's where it is extended?
Well, I think there's an element of that because we're getting to know the human body, and as years march on, we're getting to know a little bit more. I don't know how physicality affects emotions, how emotions affect the breath, how breath affects movement. I don't know, those sort of things. So, and I'm only a layman. I couldn't, you need someone who's actually, doing the research to say, well, these are the areas. But I think scientifically, yes. I think scientifically there will be an element which will affect training to some degree, but also think the business as well. Also think there's another element too, where there's one course I'm sure there's many others in other drama schools, in Central, which is the theatre collaborative devised, and they're focusing on making theatre. So the BA would be finishing the actor. These guys have another resource of actually making theatre, and they have a wonderful audition process, which I was very, very lucky and honoured to sit in with. I think they get a postcard, a kind of abstract postcard, and you have to make a performance out of that, which is really a stretch. And also kind of, that's the type of actor they're looking for as well, So for actors who can leave college and actually, get an audition and actually prepare imaginatively as well as physically for it, and come in there with something, but they're making theatre. So they are, and that course, I think I'm not, I wouldn't be well versed to talk about it right now, but I know groups of actors who went off from certain years and collectively, which isn't unusual, collectively started their theatre companies.
Yes.
But made theatre, what the difference was, they weren't necessarily making they weren't doing, let's say, Chekhov, the Three Sisters, and just presenting it above a pub. They were actually either making their own work, either working with issues as well, that sort of theatre, or taking something like the Three Sisters and doing something imaginatively with it, which actually is pushing the boundaries, And I think that's really, really healthy, because it kind of challenges the image of the actor sitting by the phone, which I know is long gone, but if you know what I mean, waiting for the call. They're actually doing something. So when the call comes, they're ready.
Yeah, being active like that. But I'll touch on another one I've noticed, when I was going over for auditions to London. You see a lot of the drama schools now, they're doing courses they're basically doing it for businessmen.
Oh, yeah.
So they're tapping in. Did you have any experience on those sort of things? Were you in any of those classes?
No, I didn't. I didn't actually observe or witness. But I mean, that's a big part of it. Where actually, and what's that about? That's about giving a performance. That's about getting that businessman. You have the best idea in the world. You come into the room and you can't sell it. Like instead, no one's going to be enthused about it. But if you have done your research, your preparation, come in there and give a performance in the sense of you're at ease with your idea, you're passionate about it, you're proactive, and you can engage with I'm thinking of Dragon's Den here in a sense, but even with an audience, that you can actually get your message across clearly, and yet still take them in as the audience, and thinking, well, what about this, and respond effectively.
It's sort of finishing the thought at each person. So if you ever see anyone do a monologue or something, if they just skim it around generally, it doesn't land. But if they land a thought, ping a thought.
That's right,
Do you know, and you see that, and I suppose that's something there to be looking to instill then.
It is, and vocally as well. And just when you're on to just when it's in the head, the monologue is, I mean, no character thinks they're going to speak for 16 lines. Because we don't really know when we're going to finish, you know. But they get to a certain point, and a lovely teacher, I think you've worked with, Donna Sodom Mauritania, you know, that thing of, you know, why do you keep talking, is because you don't want the other person to interrupt, which keeps you active, or you haven't explained it well enough, in a sense. They're not getting it, so I have to make that point. Well, that didn't do it. Well, I have to make this point. You're not getting, okay, this point, and it becomes slightly more urgent. But that all goes back to, you know, the character having a real need to get this across, in a sense, you know. So, but go back to the businessman, I mean, vocally as well. How can, you know, are they're working against tension? Because, I mean, I've talked to friends who were in university, had to go and do PowerPoint presentations the next day. You know, they had prepared for it. They were not looking forward to it, let's say. You know, it was the worst thing in the world. And I don't know what it is. It's getting up in front of people and actually speaking is one of those top two, isn't it? Fears.
Yeah.
Top two, you know, and it's like, and I think one of the tricks is, it's only one. I shouldn't going to call it really a trick. It's just a part of the skill. Is taking attention off you and putting it on someone else.
Big, massive.
But once your attention's back, Barbara Houseman has a lovely exercise: cameras in, cameras out. And you know, when I'm working with students, I usually try and do that, and their response to that is amazing. It's so easy when I focus out, when I concentrate on something, and that's for the businessman. Or you know, if you're a businessman in work, that you're having a meeting, that actually you can actually focus. This person comes in with an issue to an office, and you can actually focus on them, and then you really hear what the problem is, rather than thinking, I've got a result here, I've got to get this person out in 5 minutes. And get on with my day. Those extra 10, 15 minutes will be worth it if they're really listening. You know, because what will happen is the person will go out and think, I don't think he listened or she listened. I'm still with the same. You know, those 5 minutes were useless. So that art of listening, we've talked about this before, is really essential.
Not just hearing, actively listening.
Well, I thought the other way, listening but actively hearing. Because once you hear it, you're affected. Do you know what I mean? These are, and I say it in every workshop, these are Martin Freeman's words of wisdom, where he says, if there's one, or if you have a talent for acting, it's a talent for listening. And we just push that down what he's really doing in scenes is he's hearing, you know, what are you thinking, what are you feeling? He's hearing that and letting that affect him, and he's coming back with a response. Not necessarily a pre-planned response, but a spontaneous, something that's that's what the camera loves, those moments of, you know, it's aliveness, it's unpredictability, it's that surprise, and then the viewer is engaged, you know?
Yeah, I'm worrying about the camera, I'm going to check the camera. We're fine. Honestly,
I'm worried about the camera, I'm going to check that you check.
Yes, so actively listening or hearing. So what do you try to instill into your students then? And what do you believe the most important thing is to instill?
Well, I don't think I'm still evolving that, to be perfectly honest. But I do think, I mean, in terms of craft, that you know, the four principles in the sense of bringing imagination into your work. Your focused attention, concentration, that you're able to put that in somebody else, not yourself. That sense of ease, relaxation definitely, but putting that further down the road, you get that feeling of ease from Chekhov, and spontaneity, impulse, which is kind of Meisner stuff. You know, it's part of Meisner, it's not everything, but it's an essential seed in that. And I go back to the workshops because they're my training ground. Although it looks as if the students are learning, I'm so learning. because I can see the fruits of those 4 principles. Well, there's the basic listening, all the rest of it. I mean, the overarching one is listening with these 4 in flow, you know, and then you get momentum and you get this back and forth from actors. Of course, the actors have to play the same game in the sense that they have to be in tune with each other, or as Stanislavski talks about, in communion. That's simply just putting your focus on the other person, having them in what he calls your grasp, in a sense. So it's going back to your question, it's always going back to those things, bring those into your work. Why I say that is because that's your foundation. And if training gives anything, it should give you, after 3 years, a solid understanding, but a solid foundation onto practical foundation on what to build all the rest of your work. You can put foundations down. The foundations are interesting because they are below ground, aren't they? You never see foundations. Foundations are of different depth as well.
Like the belief paradigm that we hold.
Yeah.
They're there, but
they're there. They have to be there. I can tell you a story. I was out at it. Was it yesterday, the day before, the old shed?
okay.
It was a man's house on the farm,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see over time where the gable's going this way. The roof's going to come in eventually,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a split up the back wall and all the rest of it, because that is basically just the foundations. Certainly, the man who built it, and this is way back, it's a one room house. A one room, that's how old it is, 1 room house, and they would have slept upstairs, the 2 brothers, okay? So, but that house has fallen down because of the ground started to move around it. The foundations aren't there, and he never built that to be still standing 100 years. He just built it for his lifetime, that was it. So a foundation, you can build anything. If you put, let's say, 4 corners of the foundation down, and that's cement, what you build in terms of the actor, that's the scene, the character, the relationships, everything. That's different every time. But if you have the solid foundations, and there's houses there maybe like 6 foot, 8 foot, maybe more. You think skyscrapers, what are their foundations? Because they have to hold up that weight. You know, so if you're doing King Lear, you're kind of a skyscraper in New York, your foundations have to be solid. You know? I wouldn't expect a first year or a student out of, for many reasons, out of drama school, the first year to do King Lear. I mean, Ian McKellen has just finished it, doing the tour of King Lear, or certainly in the Duke of York's. That has taken and he's done it a few times, but that has taken every one of his years of experience to build that. But he's got mighty foundations, which were earned. You know, he hadn't got, nobody starts off with everything, but he had a determination, and out of that, those foundations will create the work in a sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's starting from a decent place, I suppose.
So to instill that in them, but also to instill, I think, here's maybe a clearer answer, but again, it's not one I've actually said that's it, I certainly work towards the empowerment of the actor. That is, that they're not looking for answers from me, or a director, or a teacher of any kind. That they're actually, because I do believe the answers are within.
Yes.
Your answers are within,
Yes.
with the work, about the work.
About anything. That's you know what I mean? As I say, to change, it is a belief paradigm that will change things.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that will hold you back.
Absolutely.
If you think the director's going to give you the answer to everything,
Absolutely.
it's detrimental to you.
Well, it kills you, in the sense of it kills your creativity. Now, there's a few people that would say, I believe an actor is a creative artist, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people differ on that, that's fine. Because they what do you call it, that sense of you're interpreting the role, of course, but you're still, to be able to change time and space in the sense of a person walks into the theatre and sits down after just, having an argument with their wife, or nearly missing the taxi, or whatever it may be. If you can change time and space up there and connect to them, you've created something. Something and the audience are part of it too. They create that, those magical moments in theatre, which are, they're not happening as often as they can or could, but you just think, my God, something happened tonight. And the audience, realize it or not, they're part of it. because they're feeding back into the process. As energy goes out, the energy is tumbled in here and is sent back out, radiated out into the because actors they feel that.
I think the most beautiful moment is the sheer silence. It's crazy. You say they're giving so much, but in that giving and receiving, both actor audience, there's just a silence. Mm-hmm. It's like when a show ends and you get that.
Yeah.
Nobody knows when to clap. That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. That for me is theatre to a T. When it is done brilliantly.
Yeah. And those they have to be earned.
They do.
They have to be earned. I mean, it's that commitment within a performance. It's that sense of an audience feel that, my God, I don't know what's going to happen next. I go back to it was only a quarter full in the West End, Death of a Salesman, Brian Dennehy. And going back and seeing that play, but seeing those moments that you're talking about, that literally at the last scene, and it's the whole cast, but he was wonderful. It was the sense of they didn't know how to respond.
That's
in
it.
That sense.
That's the beautiful.
Because of what, and so why the play has worked at some level, collectively.
That's right.
In the community, it has worked.
Yes.
Whatever they wanted to get across has worked because it's like, oh my God, this is, and it's that lovely thing where, and it happened. I can remember this moment is very hard to verbalize for me, and always will be. Those moments in theatre where I didn't think someone would react like that, but it is absolutely to the depth of humanity. But I believe it.
Yeah.
Those moments, and there was a few. There was one in there I'm thinking in particular, and I can't verbalize it better than that, but I can feel it. And every time I think of it, it moves me. But it's because of what they're doing. They have created something that we share with them, and we're part of that as well. And it's not necessarily comfortable, but it's also kind of, it enlightens as well. And again, they're hard to find, but when they're found, you just never forget. I never forget them anyway. That's a real experience. And the atmosphere has changed.
Mention need there, and I think that's interesting because if a person, I think you can need something too much. It goes back to you should never want something too much. I find a lot of the good acting I've seen has sort of flowed without a push. It's like if you're pushing for something too much, then it sort of vibrates and doesn't. It's like going down a ski slope. There's a sort of a glide to good acting.
Yeah.
And that's for me what I like to see. But the question.
But here's an analogy you'll understand is like a tractor in a rotary mower.
Yes.
And if you rev her too hard, that she goes on above or below. I nearly burnt a clutch out one time with this. The revolutions.
They are.
That's the push you're talking about.
Yes.
She'll still cut grass, but there's a shudder
to the whole thing.
Too much
pressure applied.
Too much pressure applied to the implement, to the machine. And that's what you're talking about. There's too much vibration in there. Where if you just hit the right speed, whatever the right speed is, I forget what it is now, is that she will flow. She will glide through that field. That grass where she's level and all the rest of that will be uniform in a sense. And that's what you're talking about. And that flow is, and that's what you go back to training. Training gives you a good foundation, but it gives you a chance to experience when it's really working. You might only discover it in moments. And here's a weird thing. Sometimes you'll be a better actor in the rehearsal room than the stage.
Yeah. That's
weird. When Judi Dench talks about she loves rehearsal because there's the moment she finds out what this play is about, where the character changes, or where the shifts are, and something's revealed. But if you're doing that 8 times a week on stage, that's where you need some sort of technique, because you feel like, can I repeat what I did last night? No.
That's right. I don't
think so.
It's such a dangerous. I mean, I think Ryan spoke about that. Was it him? He said if you try to, he says I made them laugh one night, and he says the next night I went for the same thing and it just flopped.
That's right.
And he says that'll happen. And it's so easy to do that in training, particularly if it's something comedic. Because you see people go for. One of my cohort, one of the ensemble had a line, and I could see him every night gearing up to just go to nail it. And the more he got the sense of, I'm going to nail this, it flopped.
Yeah.
And you were just like, because he had it so right on the first night.
Yeah,
and of course, that's the one thing about the training, you don't do a long run with the show.
No.
You only have, what, 4 or 5 performances.
That's right.
And I think that's the big thing with it.
Mm-hmm. And also it's that thing of being in the moment, that is the Holy Grail.
That's
John,
right.
John Gielgud said, if you get one performance out of 40, and like Sir John Gielgud, he said this, if you get one out of 40 performances, that is, like I say, on the money, but as close as you can get there, you're doing well. But that's where the technical stuff comes in to save you, in a sense. Because the last thing you want to do is, and we all do it, go back in mid-performance, you go back into your head and thinking that didn't go well.
That's right. That's gone.
Or they're leaving. The person in the third row is now leaving, and is there somebody coughing? That'll happen. But our focus is to. You talk about need, and this is why I think need is valuable. Is that Stanislavski created he suffered stage fright apparently. And one of the things he evolved out of, if you put your focus on something, it can actually take your awareness from the audience and put it onto the task, whatever the task is, to solve the task. And I think his thing was going up on stage and counting the floorboards or the nuts in the floorboards or something like that there. And this was in one of the books, Active Repairs. And after a while, he looked up, and all the class were looking at it, but he wasn't aware that they'd been looking at it. And he just went back to counting, and he suddenly realised, oh my God, this is what it feels like. So out of that came the objective.
I see.
That if you put your objective on something, it's not that you need it, it's a character needing it. That's where the weird thing, the actor has to be in a state of nearly ease, in a sense, but also this thing, everything's working together, the body, the breath, the thoughts as well. And if you get those planets aligned, there's a great chance flow will happen. And I mean, I've done it. I've got, this. You turn up to a performance and say, the last place I want to be and do is at a theatre and do this play.
Why is
Because I don't know, I'm not sure. I think the body's being pushing to get this. Here's the problem. Actors trying to get it right.
Correct.
Forget it.
No such words. But if you fall into that trap.
But you have to, because you have to learn the craft or what isn't working, you have to throw away. What is working, you have to kind of evolve, develop and master. I think here's a valuable thing just from talking about training is the danger of training or any technique is that it's an end to itself in a sense, that you don't get beyond the training, you don't get beyond the technique. If you're stuck in workshops for the rest of your life, I'm not saying you can always go back, but you need to, it's like the actor and the technique must merge into this other thing, and out of that comes flow, because every actor has things to get over, challenges. It could be nervous tension, it could be mental tension, it could be whatever, or even connecting to eye contact, connect to another person. And once they have a technique to get through that and over that, then they're in a better place for them to, if you go back to the tractor and the rotary mower, operate in the right revs. So that whole thing, that those two things are working, the tractor and the mower are working well together. They're sharing the same vibration.
I think it's finding your own sense of the right amount of flow.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Revs, as we call it.
Yeah.
No secret that Kieran and I are both from farming background.
Maybe a better one than me.
That's the tractor references. But yes, it's finding that
It's totally fine, and that could be a lifetime's journey. And that's also a say in workshops. This is, I don't think people, but sometimes people turn up and say, "Oh, I'll just do this workshop and I'll have it," or "I'll do this course and I'll have it." And it's like, no, we can only touch base here, with that. So, but that, like I say, the danger of any training is that you're just stuck in the training, because, and there's a woman famously in London, all she did was audition. She never wanted a job, she just auditioned, because she loved it, because you didn't have to do any of the other stuff, As Gary Oldman says, getting Hamlet, the audition, you get Hamlet, and then you have to, oh my God, now you have to do all the work.
That's right, you feel, it's like you look at the mountain and see.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, so I think that what you're talking about, that flow is really, it's such a delicate thing. It's not something that, it's something that you have to allow happen rather than make happen.
That's right.
You know?
Delicate's a great word for it. I had that after 3 years of training. I done the Irish showcase. That was the first time on stage that I was relaxed. I don't know why it was. I was just there because you had this thing where you'd introduce yourself,
Yeah.
and I was just doing it. I was like just blah blah blah, and bit of a laugh from it or whatever. But I was just like, right, I'm here. I am now character X. This is my story, blah blah blah. And then you would go into a duologue with someone else, and it was just. And I think the best actors don't care to a certain extent. Don't care may not be. There's a sort of a sense of the ability to just let go and not want to get it right.
Yeah.
Just this is a given circumstances I'm in, and
yeah. What do you call him? I think Laurence Olivier was talking to Anthony Hopkins years ago in the National, and I think Anthony Hopkins talked about nerves and all the rest of it, and he said or stage fright or something like that there anyway. But he said nerves anyway. But he said nerves is just it's vanity. Nerves comes out of vanity. In the sense, and I think this is and every actor struggles with this, because you want to get it right. Why? Because you want the audiences.
That's right. And then you want,
Now you go back to Martin Freeman was a year above me, and Martin was on Desert Island Discs, and he said a very interesting thing in it, where he said he wasn't an actor who seeks approval. And I think, that is really interesting.
And that's tough. And
that's because the thing is, how can you? But here's the gift about it. How can you ever be pleased with your work if the other person isn't pleased with it? How do you get a sense, because who knows what they're doing? They could have a day off. They could be in the middle of a divorce.
That's right.
Who knows? Who knows? But it's like if you have a sense of ownership, empowerment of your work and your technique, then out of that you can do, hopefully, on the road to your best work, whatever it might be, and to be able to let go of all the stuff, all the luggage as U2 talks about, leaving all the stuff you don't need, or all the luggage but you don't leave it behind. It's having an awareness of what that is, because usually I call it bedroom acting, and we've all done it.
Yeah.
You think, right, I can't tell the family this, but I'll go up and just do that wee bit out of the scene, the film, I like doing that, and you do it. What you're doing is you're doing it whatever the actor did, Clint Eastwood was doing. You love that. You love that sense of transformation. But then you get stuck in bedroom acting because you are self-creating everything, right? So what you're not doing is reacting off anything.
That's dangerous.
Because you can't react off the mirror in that sense. You can see what you're doing, which is great. You can't react because it's like, there's nothing there. So that's, I call it bedroom acting, where actors kind of get stuck in, and I've all done it, in the sense of, well, that felt good. And that's why you do that, let's say you're in rehearsal, and you do that night before you do the scene, it feels like this, I'll bring that in. And then it falls flat in space usually, only because you haven't connected to this other person. You haven't let the scene develop between the pair of you. I did a workshop with Slavik Kokorin, who sadly passed away, just a wonderful Russian acting teacher. And he was teaching the Chekhov technique. But he said that we must never stop asking questions.
Yeah.
Never.
In many ways, that's the child.
Yes. But that's the thing. I think that's where, you've got to bring the child into the room in the sense of playfulness.
That's it, yeah.
And the thing is, because I've often thought of putting stuff on the walls of drama studio, like what you're saying, like leave your ego at the door at Birmingham, but also like play, take a risk, because you'll learn nothing if you don't get out of the comfort zone. And that's painful sometimes.
Again, any walk of life.
Any walk of life. But that's the lovely thing. That's why I say, sometimes when you're working with the drama studio, and certainly up at the university, you're not going to have, these people are not going to be actors. The majority of them. But what they are, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to work on what we are trying to understand. What is humanity? Why do people, what is it really like to connect? To get eye contact with somebody, really connect, and actually spend it. it's a heightened reality in a sense, because you're thinking, right, what are you feeling, what are you thinking? How does that affect me? They don't do that at coffee shops. Unless it's one of those talks, you know, it's with your other significant half and saying, we need to talk. Then you start, not just listening, you start hearing. You need to hear. If you're not hearing it, that's the end of it. You know, that sort of thing. So it's a wonderful, I think that whole thing that everybody should take an acting class, yeah, absolutely, in the sense of, and I think what I'm discovering with the workshops is that people are kind of turning up. They may not want to be actors, or they may want to be actors, but actually find out, you know what it's like now on the other side, in the reality of the professional life, how unpredictable it is, and what you have to do to keep your head above water, as well as, you know, just your own sanity in a sense. But a lot of people, you know, want to just experience what acting is, and I think there's a need or a want or something in there for them to experience a fuller sense of themselves.
Yes.
You know, and that's just, you know, a particular, that's what I'm observing in the room. And in the sense of there's maybe something at home they can't express, or there's something that they what do you call it, they just know that their job is so, you know, it's just like, oh, this doesn't let me do what I
yes,
want
and
to
you
do.
sort of see that drip out in that.
They're not going to be actors, Chris, but they are going to be, what do you call it, kind of take a step into themselves and express, you know. Because I wonder too, is acting more about being more open to receive, receptive, more, what's the word, pliable in a sense in here to be affected, and better communicators of, you know, sent something out to the other person so they have something to work with, you know, in the scene.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So it's not all about, I'm going to do this, you're going to do that, I'm going to do this.
That's when it becomes...
I mean, Nadal and Federer, when they meet, they don't know if that's going to be a backhand or a forehand, or a topspin or backspin. Constant play, constant flow.
Again.
You know, you go back to that. That all, some people have it, some people walk into a room and have it, but at 7:30 every night for 8 nights in a week for 6 months, might not be able to get it again. It's like the hole-in-one golf. What did I do? I didn't understand it. You know, Chekhov says an interesting thing. He said, the more talented an actor is, the more they need technique. And I think he was talking about himself as well as, you know. Because if you don't give consideration, no matter how good you are at anything, if you don't give some consideration about what that's like, well, what is that, what's the components, how does that break down, how does it build back up again, then I don't think that's where sometimes, you know, people run into trouble. And there's a in a sense it can be self-destructive, because they don't, this thing, you know, what's the word, needs to be managed, you know, in the sense of, I mean, what's it like to step out in front of 80,000 of a crowd roaring your name, be it a rock star or a sports person? How do you manage that when that's not happening when you're doing the dishes, you know what I mean? It's that sort of, there's a sort of a, but if you don't understand it, if you're looking at, as you're doing the dishes, you want that adulation, you know, you're going to run into trouble in a sense.
Yeah.
You know? There's another lovely story. An actress, apparently, she was Oscar nominated, and she was up in her 60s, if not 70s at this point, and she went to the Michael Hart Studios in New York. He's an acting coach, and he said, "Why are you here?" He said, "You've nominated for an Oscar. You've got film work." She said, "Yeah." She said, "I got to the point I just didn't know what I was doing." So she had been doing something intuitively.
Oh yes, with the lack of knowledge of what she was actually doing.
And now, in a sense of, directors were either, no, see that thing in the last film, just do that because this is what this needs and hopefully we'll get right. Okay. So, but she didn't know. She didn't know what she was, in the best possible sense. She didn't know what am I doing here? What how does this scene work? But why does it work? So I have to do another take, what do I need to focus on, or how can I change? That's keeping it alive. And that was very brave and very healthy.
We'll soon be wrapping up because we're well on. The time's going fast as usual.
There's one thing I wanted to say was that it kind of goes back to another question, what do you want to instill, but it's not so much, they have to figure it out themselves in a sense, but I always tell them, I think people come into the room looking for the answer.
Yeah.
And they'll actually say this is the one piece of the jigsaw I haven't put in yet. And I always tell them there's no one way to act.
Yeah.
There's no one system. And people do use one system, and that's fine, that's absolutely fine, no argument with that. But for me, as a teacher, it's like there's no one way to act, but there is your way.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to make some choices to start making that happen.
I think, because I remember talking to one of my old tutors before I left, and I said, Gareth, our mind, I think in training, sometimes your mind can become packed with the lab and efforts, all of the systems and everything, and you're too busy thinking about all of these things that you can put into a performance, and then you're in your head, and when you're in your head, you're not present. Game's up.
There's a wonderful thing. One thing that Michael Chekhov said, and he had a lot of stuff, psychological gesture and expansion, contraction, ease, the four brothers, all the rest of it. But he said, if you're doing one of them, most likely you're doing the rest, which I think is liberating for an actor, because we come into the room trying to get it right? Because if you get the atmosphere right in the scene, Chris, that's going to affect your behaviour.
Correct.
If this was a tense atmosphere, your breath would change, all that stuff would subtly change, your body language, all the rest of it. And it's just really interesting, because I think, to hang up a picture, you don't need a sledgehammer, but that might be in your toolbox. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
But you just use the appropriate tools to unlock that scene. That's what you need, in a sense. But you've also got to be primed like a F1 car. You've got to be warmed up. The tyres have got to be warmed up before they have to turn, before they get grip or whatever. And that's a lifetime's work. But it's a lovely lifetime's work, because you get to work on yourself to be a better actor, but also be a better person. That you can really hear, really be effective, really respond. None of that's easy, but life isn't easy. If it was easy, everyone could be doing it, and then you wouldn't be like, well, I've done that, I'll move on to something else, which is slightly more challenging in a sense. No play is necessarily easy, but it's having that toolkit available to you, that today I need this, and that next scene I might need that. Whatever. It's that thing Stanislavski talks about, getting the lure. What's the lure that pulls you into the character? But I do believe
finding that.
And it's a personal thing. It's a personal thing. That one scene where he has an argument with his girlfriend, I don't know why, but I understand that. It's like he's standing up for himself. I understand that. That's my lure in. And then you get you get a piece of the jigsaw in a sense. I think it's that whole thing. If you go back to the clock, that whole thing has to be working very well for the right time to be told. And I do think the great actors, and actresses out there, they work very hard and very privately on it. Peter O'Toole called it the private study. Go in with the text and he would read it. But he wasn't reading it to learn it. It was actually speaking to him. Things would come out. And I think there's great value in that. A lot of people go into acting because they didn't like the classroom in school. It was just studying, sitting down, all the rest of it, which is great. But acting demands that you are. Long ago, actors used to turn up in suits to work, to rehearse.
Gray mentioned that.
Mm-hmm. Now there was a respect for a craft.
Correct.
You don't see it anymore. Don't see it anymore. Nobody turns up in a suit to work anymore. It's and that's what I call absolutely fine, because there's more likely a lot of movement, all the rest of it. But it was that generation. It was like there was a respect there. It was like the bank manager, in a sense, it's a business. They're dressed in a suit, so you take them seriously.
Final question: do you have a phrase that you like to live by?
There's two answers to that.
Go ahead.
There's one is I can't tell you because I don't know if I've lived up to it yet. Right? Okay. And the other one is which I think it doesn't happen in every workshop or every set of workshops, but it only comes in when it's appropriate. And that's when you feel people are really engaged, in the sense of you get the opportunity to say, what are we in here for? What says, okay, you're in here to act and learn how to act. But that, it's a bigger thing too. And people don't, I didn't get it till later on how big this thing could be, remember the first time working out that actually a film or a play might have a theme. So this could be a question, about power or love.
Yes.
If you look like a film like Closer, what's that all about? What are the themes happening there? They're so destructive. Oh my God. So you have that, and with the workshops, sometimes when people tap into that, we're talking about and I never know where I heard this, and maybe there's a reason I can't locate it, and maybe it's a good thing. Is the reason? What are we doing? The reason I think theatre, when it's worked at its best, is to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. And out of that, now that might be different for other people. People might, I just want to do it for entertainment. That's lovely. That's absolutely fine. That's great. That has its place. But I think that is maybe why I do what I do. It's also to get a better language between the director and the actor. But it's actually the bigger thing. And if you can connect to the bigger thing, it means that thing, moment-to-moment thing, is totally lived in the sense of I know what I'm doing this for, and this is part of this. This is one of the jigsaw pieces going in here. But the bigger jigsaw is whatever it might be, revenge, or how money can corrupt, whatever it might be, that sort of thing. And it actually can awaken something in people, which is being a real strong connection. But it really is trying to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. Because we can't tell them what to think.
That's right.
But we might leave them with a question.
Yes.
It's up to them to ponder it.
Their interpretation.
I'll tell you a story, and again, I can't remember if I read it or heard about it, but I think it was Ralph Richardson, or one of those actors, and they were in an Ibsen play, I think, and there was a moment in the play that there was a death, and this noise came out of Ralph Richardson, and I remember in an interview they asked, where did this noise come from? He said, no, just kind of rehearsal. It was kind of animalistic or bird-like or something like that there. And so anyway, that scene has happened, and that moment has happened. And then after the play, a husband and wife walk out, and the husband turns around and says, what do you think of that moment of, when he heard the wife was dead or whoever had died? And before the wife could answer, he said, but he thought it was laughable, and thought no more of it. It's only 3 or 4 months later that the wife could turn around to her husband and said, that's the exact noise I made when my mother died. Do you know what I mean? So there's a mystery to this whole thing, which I don't think will ever be solved, and rightly so. There's people talk about magic and all the rest of it. I just think there's where people connect, something happens. And that's maybe as best as I can verbalize it at the minute. And people need to connect.
So if you final, if you go about acting in one sentence.
Is this extra time, Chris? Is it? It's a draw. It's a draw. Put it down the shit out.
Put it into one sentence. In a few words, what it needs. What is it? What it is.
Meisner put it very well, if I can quote him right. He said, acting is living truthfully in an imaginary set of circumstances, or doing an imaginary set of circumstances. But what is it? I'll be honest with you, I think I'm still on that journey. That's
an honest answer.
No, it is. It is, because the more workshops I do, the more I offer it to people. The less I know. Which is a great place to be, because what you're doing is studying humanity, or
all the time,
the human condition. What is that? I don't know. So I just think it's a very important. It's the first thing that's cut in the recession, isn't it? The arts, right? You think we don't need them, but how do you learn as a kid? Through play. And what is a play? What is a piece of theatre is called a play, and it's we have a funny attitude to it. In the sense that it can be, there's kind of it's been looked down on. The arts are this. But what do people go home and tune into? Game of Thrones was on last night. That's what the majority, they need a new, what's that about?
That's right.
And you need actors.
Well, there's the voyeur. It's the voyeur in the soul.
Absolutely. But it's to feel alive. And you don't have to go anywhere, sure, you're in your own living room. But that will make people alive in some way. It will challenge others. People will say, oh, I don't like that, or the dragons, or whatever it might be. But it's people need to go back and hear stories. because no one's born with it all.
That's right.
We need to find out that journey of life. Okay, again, philosophical. It's to find out why are we here? Who am I? What do I want to do in life? All those struggles, and to go and sit in the dark and watch people in the light interact and say, it's that lovely thing from Shadowlands. Maybe this will answer your question. And again, it's borrowed. I haven't made this up. It's on Shadowlands where Tony Hopkins asks a young student, he says, why do we read? Why do we read? He's playing C.S. Lewis. And what he comes up with a couple of answers. And he says, we read to know we are not alone. And I think that's a good enough reason to go into a room, be it a classroom, a workshop, a rehearsal, or go to see a play or do a play, that we are not alone. You know, if people could actually, I think it happens during the play, but actually, you know, it's like, this is why we can't go around campfires, you know, because we're not alone. We can't exist alone, but we're stronger together, whatever that means for different people. So I think it's somewhere in there. But I'm still on the journey to find out what it means. Yeah. All I know is I'm doing it and it feels right to do. And I think the most powerful moments in theatre or the play itself was doing that. So,
Kieran, thank you very much.
Chris, thank you. Pleasure.
All right.